preparing to live stream. So I'm guessing we're live.
Hi everyone, hello, welcome to another Holistic Vet Sisters. So we're here again, 6 o'clock UK time on a Thursday evening, and we're here to answer guardian questions, mainly about dogs, but we can take other pets occasionally as well. And we're going to give holistic choices perhaps for you. So do ask us questions in the chat, even if you're watching this when it's finished. If you ask a question, we can come back to that question the next week for you. So that's absolutely fine. You can also contact us on the messages of the page as well, if you want to. So today we're with one of our regular Holistic Vet Sisters, Beatrice. She's with us. And
Hi.
Hello, hi. And Tina, Purple Dot Vet, and Dr. Lise Hansen again with us as usual. So the three of us plus Beatrice today. Beatrice was with us, a month or so ago, I think, maybe.
A little bit longer.
A little bit longer. All the time goes into one for me.
Oh.
But it was a really interesting session. It was a really interesting session. So yeah, Beatrice is here to, I think she's quite keen on talking about some mushrooms. We've got some questions on mushrooms, but we've also got some other questions. So as usual, we shall go to Tina, our question admin, and see what we've got to answer today.
Yes, there's quite a few questions. So a few of them are old. So there's been quite a few questions again about vaccines. I do recommend anyone watching, do you have a lot of questions and wandering around? We have plenty of videos already on different vaccines and nosodes and so on. But I figure we can answer these ones quickly because there is a couple of new questions. So Stella was asking, she was wondering about immunity after vaccines for a bacterial disease like lepto. I've heard that the immunity only lasts 12 to 28 months, whereas viral vaccine immunity lasts for years, and titer testing helps here. Is this true? And if so, what's the role of nosodes for a bacterial disease?
Well, it is true. I mean, the viral diseases, the core diseases that all dogs need to be vaccinated against, distemper, hepatitis, and parvo, give lifelong protection, and that's why titer testing is so useful for those. Leptospirosis doesn't give very good immunity, and the immunity that it gives lasts only about a year, which is why titer testing is not relevant in connection with that. You can use nosodes if your dog is, I mean, I would use nosodes against leptospirosis if you knew there was a immediate high risk of exposure, like if your neighbor's dog was ill with leptospirosis or, something like that. I wouldn't do it as an ongoing thing because that sounds a bit random to me. And for most dogs, it would not be relevant even. What do you use leptospirosis nosode, Beatrice?
Not regularly. No, not at all.
So it sounds like we agree. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely, we agree. We've talked about that before, and
Yeah.
we totally agree on that.
Yeah, it might be worth us finding the video that's got the information about lepto in it. It will be now on our YouTube because Facebook are taking videos off after about a month now. And it was definitely more than a month ago. We had that session where we talked about lepto quite a lot, I think. So maybe we'll go back and find it. And if it's not listed on YouTube, we will add that to the kind of blurb on that particular video. I think also, oh, go on, sorry, Tina, is that possible? It is, isn't it?
On every picture on YouTube, it says the topics or what we're talking about, and it's usually in the description as well.
Yeah, there's loads of juicy stuff to watch there. You could really binge on the Holistic Vet Sisters and find out all the answers.
Plenty of hours on there now, isn't it? But yeah, there's absolutely that the viral vaccines can last sometimes a lifetime, which is why we recommend titer testing so we don't vaccinate unnecessary. But when it comes to bacterial diseases, usually they don't last as long, sometimes not even as much as 12 months. It's depending, and the studies are varied with the results. So yeah, and most of the bacterial vaccines as well, they're not 100%. So your dog can still get leptospirosis even if they are vaccinated, which is good to take into consideration as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of vets are saying not to do it now because there's only the one strain being covered anyway, and we don't live in a hot, humid country here. I mean, I don't know where the person lives that's asking the question, but presumably Europe.
Yeah, I think they changed now, so you have to vaccinate with all 4 strains because they they eliminated the Lepto2 vaccine in the UK, as far as I heard.
There's more than 4, I thought, though.
Oh, there's 100 or something. I can't remember the exact number, but there are a lot of strains.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I think we've said it all and it's in the video, but I mean, the thing about nosodes is that they don't provoke an antibody response. So there is absolutely no basis really for thinking that a nosode you give today is going to provide any protection in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whenever. So I would only do it if there was immediate kind of ongoing exposure that you knew of, not as a sort of background just because you worry. I wouldn't worry about leptospirosis unless you live in a place where you know other people's dogs who have leptospirosis, and that is, even in the UK, unbelievably rare. So yeah.
Wholeheartedly, that's what we all think. It's a holistic opinion amongst us all. So
there was another question about vaccines as well, which I figured we can talk about. So Ethan had a question. He's getting an 8-year-old puppy, I think it was last Saturday.
Congratulations.
And but we've been going back and forth on whether to have 1 or 2 sets of DHP vaccines and then use a nosode called Canine Combo 30. If you have any advice on either 1 or 2 vaccines, and in that case, the time frames for either, and lepto is a no-go for me.
Ooh, can I answer that one, or can I start but do the first bit of the answer to that one? I don't see any argument at all for giving the vaccine and then the nosode. I mean, the nosode in that context makes no sense to me at all. I would skip the nosode. It doesn't really matter how many puppy vaccines you give. Each puppy is only going to respond to one of them. The issue with puppy vaccines is the timing. So the one, and we've discussed this in previous videos as well, but the one important point to get across is, regardless of whether you give 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, as is now the recommended amount of puppy vaccines, the important point is that you do a titer test when the puppy is 5 or 6 months old, because then you'll know that the puppy vaccine has worked. And it may work just from 1, or it may take more, depending on how late in the puppy's life the vaccines are given and whether the mother's maternal antibodies are still interfering with the puppy's response to the vaccine. We have discussed this several times before, but the only really, really important thing to remember about puppy vaccines is that when the puppy is 5 to 6 months old, get a titer test, because then you will know if the puppy has responded to the puppy vaccine. And if that's not the case, they should be vaccinated again at that point. And if it has responded, the nosodes are neither here nor there. And the puppy you could reasonably expect that puppy to be covered for life. And you can test that every now and then if you want to. That would be my response.
I think the way that the sort of the belief sets that have come about, however that's happened, people are guided towards this idea of the maternal immunity sort of finishing about 16 weeks-ish and not vaccinating until after that. And actually, when you get a puppy, it's almost like the breeder's already done that at 8 weeks, and then somebody else is telling you to do that again at 12. And it's like, wow, should I, shouldn't I kind of thing. And actually, you don't know for definite that the maternal immunity will finish at 16 weeks. It might finish slightly earlier. It might finish later, as Lise is saying. So I don't know whether I would suggest to leave it until the MI is roughly going to end, and then do the vaccine then, and then do, as Lise is saying, the titer to check, whether it was taken or not, or whether the maternal immunity did its job and said, hang on, there's a vaccine here, there's a virus here, should I say, let's deal with this.
Yeah, and I think the decision has to be made in each case, because if you have a really, really nervous Pomeranian puppy that's really difficult to find a vein, it's really difficult to take a blood test, you don't want to stress that puppy out so that it'll be scared of vets for the rest of its life, then maybe you don't want to titer test more than once when it's 5 or 6 months old. But if you have a Mastiff who's sleeping on the table, taking treats, couldn't care less whether you take a bit of blood or not, then you could just completely cover throughout the whole period by doing a blood test every 2 to 3 weeks and check, is this puppy ready to be vaccinated now? Yes or no? So I think you have to weigh it up in the situation. Certainly, if you're only ever going to vaccinate a puppy once, it should be when it's 16 weeks old. But I wouldn't, as a vet, want to recommend that as a general approach, because puppies are the group of dogs that are most susceptible to parvo. And to suggest that, 2 months old, 12 weeks old, 14-week-old puppies just kind of run around with no protection. I have seen puppies die from parvo. So I'm not completely comfortable with that either. And the one thing you certainly shouldn't do is isolate your puppy until they're 16 weeks and then give them one shot, because that's the very, very important socialization period. And the risk of developing behavioral issues is far, far, far greater than the risk of contracting parvo. So it is a complex situation, and there's pros and cons that need to be taken into account. What would you say, Beatrice? How would you do it?
Yeah, I see the same. And I don't know how it is in the UK, but we have a lot of puppies coming from the Eastern countries, and their distemper is a real thing. And I've seen, while I was still at the clinic, I've seen a lot of puppies with distemper and suffering from distemper symptoms, going blind, when they have the neurological version, that they go deaf and blind and stuff like that. So I'd be careful. And I mean, in Germany, I don't know how the law is, but in Germany, when you register your puppies with a dog organization, like a breeding organization, they require the puppies to be vaccinated at 8 weeks before they leave and before they are registered and everything. They have to be vaccinated and microchipped.
But the question then is whether all puppies really should be. I mean, the WSAVA recommendations are 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, and 6 months. And you can certainly cut down on that by using titer testing once or more times during that period.
So what is your thoughts on the canine combo 30 no-so then? Is that something you would use at all, or?
I would say that I can probably, if I get a bit more time, think of a situation where it might be useful. But maybe a dog that was a vaccine non-responder, or a dog that had very serious side effects to vaccination, so that you just knew that this dog vaccination is out, then I might do it instead, not knowing if it's going to work, but it's doing something and it may work. But generally speaking, no, I don't see a reason for it, really. The only situation I would use I mean, it's so easy to vaccinate against the core diseases with the vaccine. Just once, really, if you time it right, and then they're covered for life. So why bother with the no-so? You don't need it. The situation where I would use no-sos would be either for cats for some of the diseases that we can't vaccinate against, or dogs if there's an epidemic like kennel cough or possibly leptospirosis if there was an outbreak. But I mean, I've never seen an outbreak of leptospirosis, so
Me neither.
so no. So I mean, yeah, I mean, but kennel cough, it could be useful if you're on your way home from a show or from a training class and everyone's coming down with kennel cough. Then I would certainly give the kennel cough no-so on a daily basis for a week or two.
So yeah, if I'm to summarize this to someone who's now confused with all the words being said, basically, your puppy is usually covered by maternal antibodies from it is, a puppy until usually somewhere around 16 months, but it can vary. And
Weeks.
So, sorry, did I say months? 16, 16 weeks. And we don't always know exactly when that period is, when they're unprotected. So usually they do get it at 8, 12, and 16 weeks. The most important is usually the one at 16 weeks, because that's the one with the most likely to stay the longest. But again, like Lise said, socialization is really important. So it depends on what area you live in, what are the risks of contracting these diseases, and if you are able to do titer testing or not up until the 16-week point, because that would be an option if you have a pretty chill puppy, maybe a larger one, or that's an opportunity, especially if you have it easily available, not too expensive at your clinic. Otherwise, the 16-week one's the most important. And as Lisa said, a lot of the times they test 6-month-old puppies, and especially the ones that got the vaccine before 16 weeks of age, they're usually not protected at all. So I think a lot of dogs there actually go unprotected because we give the vaccines at the wrong time. So yeah, 16 weeks is the most important. Everything before depends on if you can do titer testing, if there's a lot of disease pressure.
And can I just add, because you made a really important point there, some of the vaccines say on them that it's okay to vaccinate to finish as early as 10 weeks or 12 weeks, and it's just not safe. There's just been an outbreak of parvovirus in young dogs in Denmark, and when it was examined, it turned out that they were all puppies that had been vaccinated according to the instructions on the particular vaccines, but they'd been given the vaccines at 8 weeks and 12 weeks, and they were not covered. And I've talked to experts about this, and they say the manufacturers of these vaccines may have been able to show that in their experiments, but in real life, things just happen differently, and it's not safe to stop vaccinating that young. And if you do stop that young, you need to do a titer test at 16 weeks or after. Sorry, Beatrice, go on.
Just one thing. I mean, it also depends how long the puppy stays with the bitch.
Yeah.
I think we have to think about that. I have puppies that leave their mother at 8 weeks, and this is certainly different as others that stay with their mother until they're 12 weeks or 14 weeks old and still drink from her. So you have to consider that as well.
It's like the manufacturers don't even think about MI at all.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, maternal immunity, that doesn't matter, we'll vaccinate anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
And
actually,
there's this very new vaccine where you only vaccinate against parvo and distemper, and you can give it as early as 4 weeks. It's
But
just
why
a
would
puppy.
you? I mean,
Yeah,
Mm.
you know, and the stuff that is written with it says to be very safe, and I
Yeah.
think, what? That's so strange.
Yeah.
We said this last week, but I watched a fantastic Dr. Susan Thixton interview. I don't know if Tina's gone and found it since. She's just great the way she explains it. So she's a doctor, not a vet, but even so. And she was essentially saying that what the MI does is just such beautiful immunity, because it's essentially showing the puppy what to react to, but equally what not to react to. Whereas when we vaccinate, we're just showing it what to react to. So we're pushing it into that reactive state. And that's why they end up with these allergies rather than the beautiful MI. If only we could harness that MI and recreate that, but that's nature. It's not something we've worked out how to do. So we're pushing the immune system to be reactive, and never telling it what not to react to. So then it becomes reactive to so many more things.
We certainly don't want to vaccinate while there's still maternal antibodies around. I mean, that's just silly.
That being said, I've had more than one puppy that has a super antibody test at 6 months and was only vaccinated at 8 weeks. I mean,
Sure.
everything is possible.
It's such a mystery in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I can't remember I shouldn't try to quote figures that I can't quite remember, but from memory, it's roughly about half the puppies who are ready to be vaccinated at 8 weeks, and something like 70-75% are ready to be vaccinated at 12 weeks, and 99 point something at 16 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's worth doing at 8 weeks, possibly, because half of them are going to respond, and parvovirus is out there and it kills puppies. So it's always a balancing act. How do you give as few vaccines as possible without keeping the puppy safe? And titer test can definitely help, unless it's a situation where it's too stressful for the puppy.
Yeah.
And for those who asked in the chat, MI, we mean maternal antibodies.
Yeah, maternal
MDAs, I normally call them.
What are they?
Maternally derived antibodies. That's what the literature calls them generally, but maybe it's an American thing. I don't know.
And normally, the vaccines work really well, but I don't know, Beatrice, what your experience is with parvo, with pups being vaccinated, because I have seen dogs who has been vaccinated die from distemper. So, yeah. I don't know if you have an experience with the...
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that, at least here, a lot of the eastern strains of distemper are not part of the vaccine.
Wow.
And that's really been a problem, because they come with other strains that we vaccinate against. And we don't see here, and they are not included in the vaccine. So distemper is really a problem. And with parvo, I mean, parvo is everywhere. And I think when I did titer testing, I don't know what your experience is, but I think I've never, ever found an older dog that didn't have protection against parvo.
Mm.
Because it's always the darkest point in when I do a vaccine check or whatever. And with distemper, it's shaky. And I think it's really, but the main problem is that here in Germany, we are confronted with strains that are not protected by the vaccine. They have sort of a cross-reaction thing going, but not always. So this is really a problem we have here.
Do you know what age dogs typically are affected then? Is there a
You mean with distemper?
distemper? Yeah.
They're 3 to 4 months old. The ones I've
All
seen
right.
in the clinic while I was still at the medical clinic in Munich, they were like 3 months, 4 months, and it was really awful to see them. I mean, some of them died, some of them stayed blind, some of them deaf. It's yeah, it's not nice. And I mean, I've seen puppies die from parvo, of course, although I have to say it's not as common as it used to be, at least here, probably because most puppies are vaccinated.
Mm. Sure. I mean, you know, we talk about titer testing and about minimizing the number of vaccines, but these are very serious, deadly diseases.
Yes.
That dogs should be protected against, and puppies are exposed more than anybody else. So it's worth being aware of the mechanisms behind the maternal antibodies and how to use that information to vaccinate each puppy in an optimal way.
Yeah.
All right, shall we get
I
on?
think, yeah, can I just say also though, I think they are really awful, obviously, but I think sometimes I like to use the word protection almost because it's like we can create this, oh, there's these awful things and oh my God, we must protect ourselves or that we must vaccinate, but actually we can build immunity and we can build the dog's chances of immunity in other ways as well. Because it's not just like, oh, if we get the vaccine procedures right, we don't need to worry so much. Because we may or might then sort of not focus so much on other things. And I think we do need, I mean, people that watch this seem to understand about fresh food for sure, but really learning more about that, I think is really important. And the other ways we can enhance the dog's immune system or not compromise it at least, you know, and the things we use around the house and all the things that Tina normally talks about with great passion, you know, it's kind of need to swing it round as well to what can we do to support the dog's body for the future as well, rather than just how can we make sure they've got the chance to have antibodies.
Of course.
Absolutely. All right, and then going on with the questions. So Tina had a question about a senior toy poodle that has an oronasal fistula from periodontal disease. She sees him regularly for grooming, and he seems really uncomfortable and irritated. Surgery was never mentioned as an option, and even if where, I don't think the owner would go down that route. And I wonder if homeopathy or something else could help, if you have any other ideas. So for those who don't know, an oronasal fistula is an abnormal hole going from the oral cavity and into the nasal cavity, which shouldn't necessarily be there. You can have food ending up in the nasal cavity, which can be irritating. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any experience.
I mean, it would have to be very serious disease going on in that mouth, or at least previously been going on in that mouth. If the dog has a constant nasal discharge, which I imagine it might have with that sort of problem, even if it doesn't and seems uncomfortable, I would suggest having asking for a referral to a vet with a specialty in dentistry, because that does sound like a case for a specialist. And a case that could be very painful or uncomfortable. It's certainly not a simple thing to have. It's not a common thing to have either as a consequence of dental problems, I would say.
And I would want more information. I mean, is there an X-ray? What exactly do you see? I mean, how does it smell? I mean, that must smell awful if you think about it, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I would love more information about the whole thing to really say we could do this or could do that.
Yeah, and also what more we potentially could do with the dental health, because
Yes,
something must have gone wrong to end up there. But yeah, to fixing that very problem, I think there is not many things that I can think of other than surgery that can fix that.
yeah,
And then, keep addressing the underlying issues to how we ended up here.
yeah,
Supportive, maybe some of the probiotic sprays, mouth sprays, could be a support while you're finding all that out.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Or
certainly
maybe
think
friend.
if it's a local vet that's diagnosed it and not suggested going further, I would see a specialist, because it
Yeah,
sounds complex and a
yeah.
bit extreme.
Mm, Absolutely. So Maria had a question, a little bit of a longer one. She has a dog that is 18 months old. She has had 2 seasons so far, and she's starting to notice a concerning pattern. Exactly 11 to 12 weeks after my dog stopped bleeding, she goes through a period of 5 to 6 weeks where her behavior flips. She becomes aggressive and bites people, but not just little nips full of violent bites that with growling, and she lunges after cars, find it very hard to manage the emotions. She's very fearful or aggressive to other dogs and or very excited. And the behavior lasts for 4 to 6 weeks. And suddenly overnight, she has a total change and goes back to being the most amazing, obedient, loving dog. It's previously gotten to a point where she cannot safely be taken outside. So we've seen a behaviorist and done intensive training, but it's hard to deal with and understand because it's just for this isolated time period. I really feel that the behavior changes are due to a medical or hormonal problem that is creating a very unstable dog. She's unspayed, and I'm reluctant to change despite this being recommended by a conventional vet. She's also raw fed and is given daily omega-3s. I've tried raspberry lead capsules, calming herbs, including ashwagandha and evening primrose oil to help support her throughout her heat cycles. They have a slight effect, but not enough to prevent the behavioral changes. Any help would be appreciated.
Well,
What would
isn't that
you
the
think?
classical homeopathic
Yeah, I was
isn't
going to
it?
say, let's say it. 1, 2, 3, homeopathy.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
really. See, a very good classical homeopath, I'd say.
Yeah, I
Wonder
totally agree.
where the lady lives. But
Yeah,
you find them if you're in the UK, what would the website be? It's .net or .org, isn't it?
BAHVS.net. Yes. British Association. Yeah. British Association of Homeopathic Veterinary Surgeons. BAHVS.net.
Or Lise online. Lise online.
Sure. Well, yeah.
Or that
But I
way,
mean, the
depending
issue,
on where I am.
the issue is, and I think we've addressed this before as well, this fascinating period after a dog's heat, where they have this period called metaestrus or diestrus, or in common terms, false pregnancy, where the dog almost is pregnant. There's just no puppies, but hormonally, mentally, emotionally, she thinks she's pregnant. And around that period that Maria describes is when she thinks she's giving birth, and she thinks she needs to guard because she's got these puppies there. So she's very confused because everyone is telling her that she's got something to protect and the world is dangerous and everybody else must stay away because they could be a threat to her puppies. So it's not really a medical issue as such. It's not abnormal. It's just maybe an overreaction to completely normal hormonal changes. And homeopathy addresses that like
yeah.
nothing else.
I've heard, I would agree with that, although it does, me being me, a little bit of maybe that we could support the liver a bit, because it may
Of
be that
course.
the body can't deal with the hormones very well at that time and can't break them down. So there's an argument for doing that as well. But I would still, even if somebody asked me this on a consult, I'd be like, see a homeopath as well. I'd totally be, because that's
And I mean,
exactly the kind of story that you hear that homeopaths say that they've solved.
and if you, I mean, I studied behavioral veterinary medicine and all that, but if you do the wrong behavioral stuff in that time, during that time, you could worsen it.
Yeah.
Because the dog could feel threatened, could feel even more insecure in that time. And because one other thing, we talked about mushrooms before, just a little bit. So cordyceps is the mushroom I would go for just to support that period, because it's the one mushroom that addresses all the hormones in the body. So that would be a nice addition to a diet you could give.
Which mushroom was that?
Cordyceps.
Cordyceps.
Cordyceps, yeah.
Is
It's
that
the
the one with the like little stalks? And I know a lot of them are like this, but like the like that. The lion's mane isn't like that. That looks
no,
like
the lion's mane is
looks
different.
like a brain and it's good for the brain. Like these
Yes.
ones I'm thinking
And
look
like
a bit
auricularia that looks like an ear,
ovaries.
and it, you know, yeah.
They look like ovaries a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
So yeah. But they are all mushrooms you would also eat. I mean, all of them are edible mushrooms. But
Yeah.
cordyceps is the one that you could take for the thyroid and for false pregnancy and all the things that are hormonal can you can use it for that, and the dogs feel much better because it's sort of equaling the things, and it could support and it doesn't disturb homeopathy at all, which is nice.
Also, if you go to my Canine Flow website, you will find audios you can play to help dogs calm. And for me, when a dog is acting like that, within that time frame, we often want things to do. You know,
Yes.
like what can I do at that particular
Instead
time
of just
with my dog?
leaving them be,
A
yeah.
lot of the time we end up with traditional behavior training, even if it's compassionate, it can be quite limiting. Whereas for me with Canine Flow, I'd be like, how can we get the dog to ground? Because the dog has this feeling rushing through their body, and you know, to limit it, to stop it, to manage it is one thing, which brings some peace to the household and can sometimes make you feel more in control, make you feel more peaceful, which then impacts the dog. However, that energy, that emotional flow gets stuck in the dog. So it's a way to get the dog to really ground that energy. And some enrichment activities are useful for that, but there's other things we can do as well, which
Yes.
you'll find on the Canine Flow website.
If I can geek out a little bit about hormones as well.
Yes,
On the personal medicine side of things. So the period she describes is usually at the end of diestrus, where the progesterone has been high and it's going to a steep drop, and all the hormones are going down very low. So obviously this is also a period where the hormones are switching over fast as well. So another thought is, you know, this is usually around false pregnancy time. So I'm also thinking if it could be like an endocrine issue, a little bit of hormonal imbalance. Even when they are in false pregnancy, if they don't produce milk, they can still get a bit like aggressive and protective, in kind of a state of mode to protect their potential offspring eventually. Yeah, I was also thinking about so hormonal imbalance, obviously supporting the liver, the diet, limiting yourself from endocrine disruptors from the environment, flame retardants on the couch, in your car, all those things, soy or
lady has to buy a new car.
estrogens in your food, you know, those kind of things. And also in an episode earlier, we discussed a little bit about Agnus castus, which is also used in pseudo pregnancy and just this era, which is something can be worth considering. We have a full episode where we talked about it a lot, if you scroll back on our YouTube. And also, yeah, I think probably one of my first approaches to this as well would be homeopathy. If nothing else works, I can also think of a few Chinese herbs that could potentially help with this. So yeah, I'd say I have some options, but I think homeopathy would probably see a proper homeopath either online or near you would be a good start.
And just to finish that one off, the one thing that I would never ever recommend in this situation is spaying her.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just detrimental beyond description, and may even I've seen a few cases where dogs were neutered and where that behavior just become their standard, you know, they were like that the whole time. So that would be the last thing to do. And I don't think behavioral intervention of any kind is likely to be helpful, because it's real for the dog. You know, there is something to protect, so it's sort of appropriate to be on guard and to be protective.
Yep.
Yeah, it's letting them do something with that feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing, which is
Yeah.
where Canine Flow is different, because you're not stopping it in a way or managing it.
Lisa, you were also mentioning in your book, I can't think of the name of it, but you know, rescue remedy and stuff, batch flowers. You talked about that.
Yeah.
Would that be relevant in this case?
Well, I mean, it can be relevant in all sorts of situations of acute stress, but it is, I suppose, I mean, compared to an individual homeopathic remedy, it's very superficial. But it's an easy go-to in all sorts of stressful situations.
Yeah.
And Agnes Castor similarly, you know, it's helpful with hormone issues, but I think if you've got a real situation like this and you need to go deep, then I just don't know anything that compares to an individually selected homeopathic remedy. So that would definitely be my suggestion in this case.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel sometimes also when I give advice, you know, I can give all these amazing herbs and all these things, and oh, you know, it worked so well, yes, but maybe we haven't gotten to the root of the problem, and then it's likely for these things to occur, or this just to be a little band-aid for a little while, you know.
And
So-
that's such a good point. And I thought about this after one of our last talks, because there's one of the questions, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent now, and I'll make it really brief, but it's just Tina made such a good point about when we're trying to lessen something or, you know, address some symptoms, but we don't go deep enough. And often when the questions are, what shall I put in my dog's ear, or what shall I put on my dog's inflamed skin, it's sort of the wrong question, because there's all sorts of nice things that you can put in ears or put on skin, but you are really just using it as symptomatic treatment. And it may or may not be better than using steroids or whatever, but it's still very superficially acting symptomatic treatment, where what you want to do is go deep and address the root of the problem.
Yes.
I think that's a really important point.
Yes, and I think so too. I've had some frustrating cases recently, if I can rant as well, where friends ask me for advice on herbs. What herbs can I use for this? And then I talk a little bit with them and I say like, okay, their microbiome is off balance, you know, they're using broad spectrum flea and tick medication every month. So I say, you know, you should consider, you know, finding a different solution for this, and then you can use these herbs and all these things to make it better. And then they come back and, oh, you know, the symptoms went away, this is great. And now a few months later, then they get an ear infection, you know, because the underlying issue was not addressed. So it really, like, you can throw as many things on the fire as you want, but if it's not, you know, the root is not discovered, then it will still be a potential problem in the future.
Well, if like I was saying last week, I think, or to somebody, if the terrain isn't changed, you won't change what's actually going on.
No.
You
can use colloidal silver, or you can use, you know, this or that or this or that, but it's still firefighting, like Tina was saying, you know, and we'd like to go deeper and solve where it's all coming from.
Exactly, which is very important.
And in the worst case, I mean, it's not antibiotics, but it can be suppressive as well.
Yes. And you don't think of that, do you? Because there's this general idea that if it's natural, it's good, surely. But it can be suppressive, yeah.
We do have a question on mushrooms here from Ian. So he said, I think you've talked about medical mushrooms before, but I was wondering if they're helpful in preventing issues later in life, as well as helping with diagnosed conditions. So we have a healthy 4-year-old rescue terrier, raw fed, has a few tummy issues, which we've been working on and have improved hugely since having his microbiome looked at by Biome for Pets. So yeah, I think Beatrice do a bit of mushrooms, don't you?
Yeah. So, I mean, he's 4 years old, so that's not really later in life for me. It's just a young, healthy dog with some tummy issues they are already addressing. But so it's hard to say, give this or give that or do that to prevent stuff from happening. But in general, there are some mushrooms you can, or let's go a step back. For me, it's now, you almost can't find, at least in Germany, you almost can't find anything that has mushroom in it. Like a herbal stuff or this thing or that thing, and there's always one mushroom in it, like reishi or cordyceps or hericium or something. You can't, it's maybe chamomilla and this and that and one mushroom. And if you say, why is there mushroom in it? Yeah, because they're healthy. And I mean, it's okay, but I wouldn't give mushrooms, because for me, they are medicinal mushrooms, and I wouldn't give them just to prevent something maybe from happening. For me, they are given as a therapeutic, you know. So if you have some conditions like, I don't know, maybe musculoskeletal problems, pain or so, then you can maybe support some stuff with mushrooms like shiitake or reishi or something like that. But I wouldn't give it to prevent things from happening maybe in 8 years. You know what I mean? That's like giving this homeopathic remedy, so this won't happen, and this Bach flower, so this won't happen. For me, you have to have symptoms and you have to have a condition. And this is very general, a question to say, maybe there could be conditions. So this is hard to answer, you know.
But I completely agree. And I have this conversation daily, this, you know, just, I don't know, loving guardians wanting to do good things, so wanting to buy lots of good things to give their animals, and to me there needs to be a reason why. I wouldn't give any supplement unless there was a reason why I wanted to give this particular individual this particular supplement, in a very general way.
I'm with you there. I'm with you. We massively over supplement.
Absolutely.
And I just see constantly that supplement recommendations to put on things like 80-10-10s, and they don't even cover the things that are likely to be low. And I'm like, oh goodness, yes, you're giving all these amazing supplements or all this veg or something like that, all these plant materials, and you need so little, really. You do need stuff to add to those foods, but you don't need all the things that they're giving. So yeah, we're massively over supplementing because we just love shopping for our dog, don't we?
This is the thing. Yeah. And my feeling is always, instead of spending our money to buy good things for our animals that we love so dearly, give them time, you know, do training, playing, walking. They don't want stuff.
With them. Meditate with them, you know. If we want to
give them your full attention.
Yeah.
Don't walk them while on a mobile phone, or you know.
Oh my God, it's so easily done. Yeah, it's so true, because it's like the terrain, it becomes toxic, okay, and we can think of toxicity as molecules, and that top kind of toxicity can affect them later in life. So the less we can put in them toxicity wise, the better. And last week we spoke a lot about microplastics. And goodness, that's another thing to think about. So it's almost like it isn't about what can we add to the dog, it's what can we take away, what can we remove, what can we not be putting in them that culture and society kind of ends up putting in them without us even meaning to. And then the other thing that affects the terrain is the dog's frequency, and emotions have been proven to be measurable as frequencies. So we have to come back to ourselves as guardians. What have we got going on subconsciously that we can remove from ourselves, and then thus remove from what the dog is picking up from us? Because they do have the biggest heart per body mass of any creature. They will pick up on our subconscious emotions, not the ones that are running through here that we can consciously think about, but the ones that are all around us all the time, kind of our stuck somatic trauma, if you like. And that sounds really awful, and it's like, oh goodness, I don't want to look at myself. You almost don't have to. The work I do with Canine Flow, you definitely don't have to. And there's loads of therapies and modalities, and even, like I just said, meditation can really support your body to release these, so they're not then going to impact the terrain of the dog for future years. So the molecular side of it, the frequency side of it, if we can reduce all this toxicity wise, I think that's how we protect them for the future, the best way we can. And then you can never protect for everything. You can't do that. You know, life will happen and stressful events will happen, but it's building their resilience then. You know, if there's less molecular toxicity and there's less frequency, emotional based toxicity in the body, they will be so resilient when stressful events do happen. It'll be like the dog, oh, you know, my dog's a stooge dog, he's not bothered by anything. That's the kind of resilience, you know.
But that's a beautiful point, that the most important thing we can do for our dogs is not something that we buy.
Yes. And but also because he mentioned tummy problems of his dog, what I see a lot is that people feed a lot of herbs. I don't know if you have that. I have people that like a supplement, 50 herbs garden and something like that. And I have dogs that come in with tummy and gut problems, and you just take the herbs away and they feel so much better.
Interesting.
I mean,
Not
it sounds,
they in front of
you
a
know,
vet.
but I mean, the herbs they get tons and tons of herbs. Half of them have etheric oils in them. And I mean, you can imagine what it does to your gut. And you take them away, and it takes maybe a week, and they are much better. And the stomach is better, the gut is better, everything is better. And then when I say, and people are, then guardians are asking me, when can I give it? Can I give it again? And I say, why? Yeah, because the dog doesn't have it all and needs it all. And what I always ask is, how do you do it each day? Well, I don't. And yeah, I think it goes to everything regarding dogs and pets, is that people, guardians, are made so fearful regarding their animals, either because of vaccinations, of deworming and stuff like that. They have forgotten that they're just animals. They live with us. And it's all, I have to do this and I have to do that. And it goes back to what Caroline said, you know, and they forget the basics, the most important part.
Good water, sunlight, being on
Yes,
the earth. These are the things that we often don't, well, can't do much about losing sunlight ourselves, but the good water we can definitely change. The getting
yes.
on the ground to earth we can definitely change for sure.
And trying to
And just presence and stimulation, appropriate activity. Yeah,
Yes.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
getting them to ground energies for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a question for Beatrice in the thread. Amanda is asking, my girl is currently in season. She's having raspberry tablets daily. Can I give that mushroom cordyceps as well? What dosage would you recommend?
Well, you can give cordyceps, of course. The dosage depends if you have pure mushroom or if you have other things with it, because there can be an essence of mushroom in it. It depends on the manufacturer, what you get. And it depends on the weight of your dog, because it's not a fixed, you know, it depends how heavy your dog is, how much it weighs. And it's also important to know if you have just dried mushroom filled in a capsule, or if there is an essence of mushroom in it with it, or a derivate or mother tincture. It depends on how it's made. So it's hard to say how to do the dosage. There I would have to know where it comes from and what's in it.
So we don't.
If Amanda was going to go and buy some, what would be the best type of mushrooms for her to buy in a powder?
The easiest are just the mushroom without any other stuff, just the pure mushroom, dried and capsuled, because you know what you have. And the other stuff is a little bit, I think I would only give that when I have a therapist who knows what he or she is doing.
But I would also be tempted to ask why. I mean, I would want to ask Amanda, is there a time in your cycle where you take a raspberry leaf and, you know, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to give any of these things to a dog just because she's in heat. I would want to know what are the issues and why is there a need to do anything at all?
Of course. And just one thing, I would always and only take mushrooms that are from a organic producer. Just to say that.
100%.
Because that's so important in mushrooms, more than anything.
So basically, usually you should follow what's written on the bag if it's bought for a pet.
Do you think sometimes they don't even know, though, really?
Yeah.
It's kind of such jumped on the bandwagon, like Beatrice was saying, everything's got mushrooms in it these days.
Yeah. And there is no, I mean, they are put in together and the dosage makes no sense at all. Yeah. So I'm with you, Lise. I would ask first why she would give something. Is there even an issue? Because a lot of dogs don't have an issue with in season, with their season or pregnancy or forced pregnancy or anything.
I think she said it has phantom pregnancy.
Which is normal.
All dogs have phantom pregnancy. Yeah, that's the thing. To varying degrees, but all dogs have phantom pregnancy.
The question is, what is the problem with the phantom or false pregnancy, you know?
And then the answer will be homeopathy.
In the end, it will be homeopathy, yes?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so gentle, homeopathy. Why not try homeopathy before we start spending money on supplements?
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the question earlier about the mushroom, I was just gonna say, yeah, I usually use as Beatrice, I would use it for a reason, usually. If it's like an old dog, if it's like cognitive issues, if there is, endocrine issues, then I would see like a certain fit. However, sometimes I do write it in recipes for food. Nothing like they don't need to have the same thing every day, but I do sometimes use mushroom in the diet, so which is absolutely harmless and can be very beneficial.
Yes.
But buying a concentrated supplement, I would mostly use for a specific reason.
Yes.
Yeah, and I did a course once in medicinal mushrooms, and the one thing that I took away was this, I can't remember his name now even, but he was going through all these different mushrooms and their use, and then he said, actually, we should just all eat more mushrooms, because some of the general beneficial effects of mushrooms are just common to all mushrooms, and just by
Yes.
including, eating mushrooms several times a week, will benefit just on a very general level, just in our food, which I think is a nice way to get these things anyway.
I think things work synergistically. I mean, there's so many studies that show that eating a whole food is better for you, and they can't always pinpoint the entire reason, but things
Exactly.
are working synergistically. It's like they extract part of a herb to create a herbal medicine, or to create a herb. Even in traditional medicine, that they would use that part of the herb, but actually it's the synergy of the other components that is creating the power behind why the herb is helping. So I'm sure that's the same. There's so many studies now into that. Even with our diets, and you eat a whole apple, it's better for you than eating the apple puree or the processed
Extracts.
yeah.
And I think there's a level of arrogance that we like to, I don't know, synthesize something and think that we understand what it does and talk about how many milligrams we should take, but actually we don't know as much as we think we know. And if we just, lean into nature and take the whole thing, then it's I think that's a really, just to agree with what Caroline was just saying, there's an arrogance to thinking that we know exactly which bit does what and how much we should have.
Yeah.
Now
Eat the whole thing.
Yeah, and I guess we can get into pharmacognosy now as well, how, some animal can pick out themselves what they need.
Self-selection, I prefer to call it. Yeah, because I'm sure that where mushrooms grow, historically, animals, whether it be dog or otherwise, have sought out a mushroom that might have benefited them for some reason. That is what's happened for millennia, millions of years. Animals have sought out the things that supported them. Elephants do it, and they just, self-selection is part of who they are intrinsically, but a lot of the things don't grow now in the way that they used to, of course, many moons ago.
Yeah.
They're not
Seen in a
there.
lot of species.
Yeah, but you see,
Primates.
people buy all these supplements, they buy all this stuff, and instead of thinking that maybe the food they give their animals is one of the main, I mean, they feed them dry food where they don't even know where the meat comes from, if there is any meat in it. And if you tell them, well, if you feed meat of animals that are outside and they can eat grass and they are raised organically and so on, and because they are in a herd and they can be normal, like a normal cattle, a normal, that is important.
They're happy cows, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but a lot of people don't want to understand.
Or they just buy it from somewhere. I constantly am on about this quality. People say, what's the best quality raw food? It's like, what does quality mean to you? Because sometimes people think quality is good customer service. Sometimes people think quality is good labeling.
Yeah.
And actually, you could have some, like, I'm not saying labeling isn't important, but organic, grass-fed, grass-finished, all these terms are what we should be looking for. And if we're getting intensively farmed meat, it doesn't matter how good the customer service is, how good the range is, what they're putting with what, or, to make their, whether it's mixed protein, single protein, whatever. We need to be looking at the quality of the meat. That is above and beyond what we need to be looking for. And we're not. generally speaking. And of course, that is the more expensive.
Yes.
It's more
Yeah.
expensive.
But in the end, it's not, you know.
But yes, in the
Exactly.
end, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we talk about that terrier, that 4-year-old terrier, the best the guardian can do is make sure he gets the best food he can. That's really it. And I mean, if someone says the dog is raw fed, it's nice that it's not dry fed, but raw fed isn't raw fed, you
Mhm.
know,
Could mean it a
depending
lot.
where the meat comes from, where the animal is, how happy they are. I mean, it sounds funny to say it's a happy cow, but it's important.
Mm.
It is important. It is important for sure. Yeah.
What a difference. And
I
even in
mean,
the
we've learned maybe 10 years ago how important it is to leave the horns on the cows and not take them away, because there are stuff happening in the horns that's important for everything. I don't know if in Germany, there's the University of Kassel, and they did studies maybe 20 years ago when they feed the milk of horned cows to babies with skin problems. It goes away.
Wow.
You
Really.
know, because
feel
something is
frustrated.
happening in those horns that change the text the milk completely, you know.
I love that.
There are studies, and
So is it where they've taken them off and it's created the somatic trauma in the body, or is it where they've
I don't know, but
something
they
about
found
the
out
horn?
that if you take the milk of a horned cow, a cow with horns,
Ah,
it's
okay.
just completely different, and the babies can tolerate it, and their problems with the skin go just away.
That's so interesting. I need to find out more about that.
Yeah, I can send you the link if you want.
I'd love to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just fascinating that, but then I guess when you start thinking about it, the cow as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
that must have some impact on it. So, and it would be interesting to see if there's multiple studies or if it was just, and the methodology of the study and all the rest of it. And who funded it? The Horns for Cows Society.
exactly.
Well, of course, but I know that Demeter, it's an ecological company, and if they want to give their button to the farm, the cows all have to have horns. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Ask one more question before we end this
Okay.
live.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think Lisa and Beatrice, I think you need to clarify something when it comes to pseudo pregnancy. Irma is asking, but how long before the heat sets in should you start with homeopathy to make the false pregnancy easier, so no milk production and so on, easier for the dog?
It's easier to start, certainly. Well, generally speaking, it's easier to start the deep acting treatment in between seasons. If you take the case then and start the treatment then and prepare, you're in good time, and I would start before the problem or the time of problems happening for that particular dog. However, it's while there is a false pregnancy, of course, that you can see the effect. And because when you treat homeopathically, it's never a matter of a remedy for a condition, it's always a remedy for an individual. So there is always an element of testing. You know, I think this fits this particular dog, but let's see. And then you adjust if the remedy was wrong, or if the potency was wrong, or if the dosing in some way needs to be adjusted. So, but the short answer is I would ideally start before the next season to be ready, and then adjust when the period comes.
But when is the false pregnancy a problem and when is it not? If she
Well, that's a really good question,
The
isn't it?
the question is it a problem for the dog or for the guardian?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the important question with
I mean, milk is
everything.
not a problem. People often
No.
think, oh, it's a problem, it's an illness, it's an imbalance because there's milk. It's completely normal. You know, milk during a false, I mean, the whole period is normal, and all female dogs go through it after a heat cycle. Just I like to liken it to women, because it's there are also women who become mentally or emotionally or physically unwell from normal hormonal changes, normal
Yes.
times in their cycle. There are women who have seizures or migraines or cold sores or depressions or whatever, just because there's a period or there's a pregnancy or whatever there is. It's not necessarily a hormonal imbalance. It's just in my mind, it's an oversensitivity maybe, or an imbalance that in their response to normal hormones. But those sort of things are very, very treatable in humans as well.
And it's sometimes transference, I don't know how it's with you, but I have guardians sitting there and saying, my dog is depressed. And they just have a false pregnancy. And for the dog, it's not a problem at all. And I had this one guardian who said, I want my dog spayed because when she is in a false pregnancy, she doesn't want to play with me. So it's not a problem of the dog. It's a problem of the guardian.
It's really a matter of understanding that time period better. And maybe we could talk some more about this. We'll talk about it more next time Beatrice is with us, maybe. Because it's the normal feeling. I mean, if you're my age, we didn't talk about this, but when I see, young women in their 20s now, they understand much more about the cycle and how you feel on different days of your cycle. And if you've seen this circle of, spring, summer, autumn, winter, in terms of the female hormonal cycle in humans, you can absolutely correlate that to the dog's cycle. And a dog in having a false pregnancy is having that phase of that for humans are described as, you want to put on warm socks, you want to light candles. They even talk about nest building for women, that progesterone dominated feeling of not wanting to go to a party, but wanting to be on the couch with a blanket and a Netflix series and some candles and some chocolate.
Yes.
It's an absolutely appropriate way to feel when you're in that progesterone dominated part of your cycle, and it is for a dog as well. And it's just ignorance that makes us, they need to be up, they want to be out, they need to be wanting to play and chase and train. They don't, because it's not the cycle they're in. It's not where they are.
There's an additional question. She's asking if 2 months false pregnancy with milk production is okay and normal.
Yes.
Yeah, if the dog is happy. Yeah.
I mean, the pregnancy is 63 days plus minus, and the
Exactly.
false pregnancy is the same time plus a few weeks until the milk goes away.
Yeah.
That's
Still
normal.
no harm. Still no harm in homeopathy or
No, but
supporting the liver, though.
no, of course
No,
not.
but it's not a
I love
problem.
the liver.
I
No,
mean,
yes, I agree.
feeling dominated by progesterone for 2 months and having milk is not abnormal or medical or problematic.
Yes.
It's absolutely part of the normal cycle for a female dog.
And that's where we end.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Beatrice, for being with us.
Thank you
Come back
for having
soon.
me. We talk soon. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I will take us off.
Thanks
Say
for
goodbye,
watching,
everybody.
everyone. See you next week.